Are you working on dialing in your B2B sales skills? Maybe you're brand new to B2B sales and you're just looking for some advice. Maybe you're a seasoned professional with all the grit and grizzle that comes along with that. Well, whether you're brand new or well seasoned, you're in the right place here, because we're talking a little bit about some of the common B2B missteps that sales professionals take and how you can avoid them. If you have been around for a while, I'm betting that some of these are going to feel familiar to you. If you haven't been around for a while, if you haven't been around yet, well, pay attention, because you'll and learn from my mistakes. Hey everyone, Ian Campbell here. I am CEO of Mission Suite. Before we jump into today's video, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you're notified every time that we post new videos. So B2B selling can be kind of high pressure, or at least can feel like it's high pressure. And when that pressure is on, we all probably make some mistakes and end up falling into some missteps there. But it's not fatal. But if we can talk about these pitfalls, we can probably help you or somebody else from making these mistakes as well. And we can all get better at what we do. And today we're going to tackle some of the common sales pitfalls and how to avoid them. A lot of these are things that I've done personally. So again, you get to learn from my mistakes. We're going to start with one of the most common challenges and talk about how to avoid those missteps to make your pitch and make those meetings even more effective, because this first pitfall is oh so common. And that's talking more than you listen. And that's talking more than you listen. Sorry, I had to make the joke there. I get it. We've all been there, right? You're excited or you're nervous. You're ready to get something out. Maybe you've practiced the pitch really, really well and you finally got it dialed in and you're just busting to start or just ready to keep going. But you know this, that the more you talk, the less you're listening. And the less you're listening, the less you're learning about your client, your prospect, or your lead. My advice, well, pretty simple actually. Just shut up. Say it to yourself in your head if you need to. Say it over and over and over again if you have to, but just stop talking. Normalize not talking, right? Normalize shutting up. Be quiet. Stop talking. Whatever you need to say to yourself to stop talking. If you ask a question, there's probably going to be a few seconds of silence where the other person considers their answer, maybe thinks about what they're trying to say, maybe they're thinking about what you want to hear. Whatever it is, it's perfectly normal, right? So have some patience. Let them get to their response and get ready to listen to it. Obviously, that's the first part of that, but the second half of that is simple but not easy, or whatever the cliche is, right? It's to listen. While you're not talking, just listen. Some of the most excellent salespeople that I've ever known have been phenomenal listeners. And this is a skill that we all need to be working on all the time. And not just kind of passively listening or listening for something you can respond to, but actively listening to understand. So what are some of the do's and don'ts of actively listening? Well, pay attention. You're going to learn a whole lot if you just sit down and pay attention. If your prospect is willing to take the time to answer your question, well, then it's your responsibility to just sit there quietly and truly absorb what they're saying and listen to understand. Next thing, don't just be thinking about what you're going to say while the other person is still talking. I get it. Again, this is kind of one of those common human nature things where either maybe we're anxious to pitch, maybe we're anxious to sell, to talk about how phenomenal we are, humbly. But you need to temper that excitement and you need to pay attention. And what we're saying to you could definitely change what you say next. And next, take some notes, right? Make sure that you're taking those notes down, whether it's on paper, on your note app or whatever, but get them into your CRM, because it's going to be really handy later on as you're working to meet the needs of the client. And being able to recall what a client or a lead or someone has told you is one of the best ways to actually build that trust in your relationship. We talked a little bit about that last time. Next, don't judge. Anything a prospect or a client tells you should only be used to help you tailor a solution for them, right? If they tell you that that they have a budget well below what you need, well, that's okay. Just be glad that you found out what their budget is and then figure out where you need to go from there. Next, repeat back what you've heard if you're unclear. If you're going to the trouble of paying attention and actually listening, you want to make sure that you're actually hearing them correctly as well. So if something's unclear, ask a question about it, right? Repeat it back to them. Repeat what you heard. Next, don't stop asking. right? As long as you have a prospect who's willing to give you information, keep asking for it. Think about how many times you've had a lead that withheld information or was a little vague in their details, just wasn't open. That's a significantly harder way to close a deal. And so if you have someone willing to answer, that means that they're probably in a much better position to actually do some business with you. So you can probably put that into the W column for now. Next thing that I like to talk about, a big misstep that I've seen a lot of salespeople do, is that's just creating a cookie cutter sales pitch and just trying to send it along to as many people as they can, hoping that even a blind squirrel is going to find a nut eventually. If you're fortunate enough to get to a pitch meeting, don't waste that chance with a pitch that's not crafted for them. Take the time to research the company that you're pitching and tailor that pitch to their specific needs. We'll talk more about research in a little bit, but walking into a pitch meeting without a tailored appeal is always going to be a mistake. First, keep in mind, people don't care about your company, right? It's not about you, it's them. They care about how your company and other companies like yours can actually solve the problems that they have and ease the challenges that they're dealing with. They don't care about your flashy business cards, some generic pitch, or an elevator speech that it has been used and reused that they've probably heard 4 or 5 times over. Right? Your pitch should clearly show that you know who you're talking to and that you've spent time thinking about their needs and how your solutions can best meet those needs. Second, by preparing a custom pitch, you are signaling your commitment to do business with a company, right? Not just any company, but you actually want to do business with them. To me, a generic sales pitch says that you're probably more concerned about the quantity of leads and the quantity of deals that you're getting rather than the quality of the deals and the quality of the relationships that you're building. So show your prospects that you've learned about them and that you actually want to be a partner and not just a salesperson. As you are researching that company to tailor your pitch, you will, without question, uncover a lot of helpful information. What if you found a challenge or a hurdle that they might not even know about? Pointing this out, tactfully of course, and offering a solution to it can be a key to winning that business. Similarly, you might also learn something that indicates that your companies just aren't a good fit for one another, and that's okay too. Remember, not only should your pitch be tailored to the company that you're talking to, but you should also customize the pitch to land with who you are talking to. There should be customization there, given the fact that talking to a CFO is a lot different than talking to the administrative assistant. Talking to a sales manager is going to be a lot different than talking to an HR manager. So know who you're talking to, identify that, and really make it relevant for them. Once you know who will be there, then you can further tailor your pitch to kind of fit in with the other folks that need to hear it as well. Continuing on that, the next thing that I want to make sure to point out is that not understanding the client's business or the needs that they have is definitely a huge misstep, right? Obviously, if your prospect is willing to meet and listen to your pitch, it's because they probably have some sort of need. So it's your job to find out what those needs are within the context of their business. You owe it to them and you owe it to your company to research and deliver a pitch that responds to those needs. Otherwise, your pitch is not going to land, right? It's going to fall flat, kind of like we were talking about before. And at the end of the day, there's no point to it. So step one in creating any sales pitch should be researching the company and then listing your prospect's pain points. Eventually, you can also deal with how you can help to ease those pain points or even resolve them completely. But work on your empathy and show that you really do understand what they're going through. Work on being a partner and not just a salesperson. When businesses face challenges, they're going to look for partners. They're not just looking for companies that are willing to actually, take their money in exchange for their product, right? That's what they're all looking for. You want to be the partner. Your well thought out pitch should include some relevant case studies too. If you can demonstrate that you solve similar or maybe exact challenges that they're dealing with for other people, then it's going to build a lot of confidence and it's going to show that you actually understand. Next, you need to understand their needs and their wants. Do they want to collaborate with a small company or do they want to work with a big one? If you're tiny and maybe 2 people, then somebody wants to work with an enterprise class company. It's okay. Just, separate cleanly. Maybe they have past experiences that are going to dictate who they partner with in the future. Maybe they have corporate guidelines that they have to follow. Who knows? But these questions, they can sometimes seem secondary as far as relevance goes. But if you can learn these things, then you're going to put yourself ahead of your competition. You can't fake this. So do the work and set yourself up for success. Knowing a client's business will also put you on a path to building rapport. So don't just dive right into your pitch necessarily, right? Take time to show that you actually understand. Show off what you've learned, ask questions about their vision, and get to know those whom you're talking. Another thing and this is a big one, to make sure to avoid is lying to your client or maybe fudging some facts to try to relay that you know their business better than you do. As we've talked about, straying from the truth is never the answer. Overselling and embellishing are no way to build trust and no way to create a healthy working relationship. There's just nothing to be gained by lying. Even if you think it's just a harmless little fib or maybe a white lie or something that, you can fix down the road, just don't do it, right? It's not worth it, because if they catch you, then everything's going to backfire. If you've done it and it worked out, well, it can still backfire, and it probably will eventually, right? Lies or white lies, fibs, whatever you want to call them, they're always going to catch up to you in the end. Instead, do the work, right? Get to know their company, get to know the client, get to know your company, get to know your clients, right? Forge real relationships with these people. There's no reason not to do this. And if you can get educated and actually ask intelligent questions, you're also saying that you are really invested and are actually willing to be a partner to them, and not just someone who wants to sell them stuff. If you need some pointers to start your research, then do a quick Google search, right? It's a great place to start. We all know this. We've all been using Google for God knows how long, right? So I mean, this is the first place to start with anything. But take a look at the social media accounts as well, right? You could probably learn a lot about your client by the way that they interact on LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, so on and so forth. Read some of their customer reviews. Of course, take a review with a grain of salt because you don't have context, but you're going to know how others actually perceive them. And it's almost as good as actually talking to clients. And while you're researching and keeping notes, don't forget to include what you've learned in your CRM, of course, and hopefully you have a good one. If not, you should be taking a look at Mission Suite. But keep in mind that the info that you collect here is going to be helpful down the road, and it's going to be helpful to help you segment lists. It's going to be helpful to actually sell too, right? The more information that you have, the better. But you're only going to have it to reference if it's actually in your CRM. So get it in there. Some other types of untruths we should address do include overpromising. So that's where we're going to go next. Overpromising and underdelivering. That is we see this all the time, or at least we feel it all the time, right? We feel like we've been promised the world and we get, I was going to say this like I was going to name a small state, but I'm not going to do that. But you get my point, right? If you are pressed in a pitch or a meeting, resist the urge to overpromise. If your product or service can't actually do something that your client or prospect is asking you about, or maybe asking you how you measure up against the competition or something like that, you're never going to win by overpromising. Your go-to, if you feel like you're backed into a corner, is to say, you know what, I don't know, let me research that and get back to you. Then, of course, you just have to follow up, but at least you haven't painted yourself into a corner that you can't get out of, right? I mean, there's been so many times that I personally have actually started to... I remember when I made a marked shift in this, right? And I actually started doing this myself, and basically just being very blunt. If I don't feel like I measure up in the same way, if they're looking for something specific, just be honest, right? Or, like I said, if you have to, just, I don't know, let me get back to you on that. And, of course, speaking of your competition, if you find your client pressing you on a point where you don't measure up, just, like I said, admit it. If you've done your research, you shouldn't be surprised by this, so you can probably turn it into an opportunity to point out where you do outshine your competitors. But more good news, if your client or prospect is adamant about this point, then it could be a sign that it's not an excellent fit for you, and, well, now you get to move on, right? Now you get to save some time. It's not a direct win, but you're never going to fit a square peg in a round hole, so it's better to know now. Promise what you know you can deliver and commit to that. In fact, use the Scotty from Star Trek method, right? Under-promise and over-deliver. A client would rather have you over-deliver than over-promise, and you'll never be able to build a successful relationship by over-promising. After the meeting is over, if you feel like there is something that you've forgotten, or if you want to reach out again, you can. Of course, your CRM should be already working on a follow-up for you. For example, with Mission Suite, you can set up a series of automated follow-ups and include personalized notes, things like that. And if you're using your CRM, the end of the pitch is not the end. It's usually and hopefully just the beginning. So the last thing I want to point out is another bad habit that I have personally had to break. I remember when I was younger, I used to do this all the time, and that is overselling. Overselling is also known as buying back the farm after it's been sold. It's when a salesperson continues to pitch despite already having a yes from your client or your lead. It's a great way to annoy your lead and possibly lose the deal. Imagine the pitch is a marathon, right? A marathon ends in precisely 26.2 miles. You don't get more medals if you keep running past that. Once you hit your 26.2, you got to stop. And once you have a yes, stop, right? Doesn't mean that you can't upsell. It doesn't mean that you can't have more conversations down the line. But for now, stop with the yes. Be happy with the yes. Because it's ultimately, there's oftentimes a point at which you're going to say something that's going to make them question their yes, right? More often than not, you don't get a yes in the moment anyway, right? But when you do, when you have that conversation and you get to that yes, stop there. For example, if your pitch has introduced yourself and your company and why you were the best choice to have a conversation with, it's illustrated how you can solve problems, ease pain points, and best serve their needs and answer their questions, and really been clear about that you want to work with this company and why you want to work with them, and then finally ask for the business, you're done. If you continue to sell, then you're probably much more likely to start down a path of overpromising, restating points you've already made, making other mistakes, making other promises, maybe saying something that is making them, like I said, that makes them just kind of rethink what they said, what they heard. So it can be really counterproductive, and it can cost you deals. I know that I've personally had it cost deals for me myself. So all of this obviously is not good, but just be mindful and practice this because you can avoid it. So that's it for me for this video. These are some of the common pitfalls that I see a lot of sales professionals make, no matter how young or old they are. If you have any questions, of course, please reach out to Mission Suite. We'd be happy to talk more about, some of the things that we've seen here. Listen, also, if you are an old grizzled veteran and you've been doing this for a long time, I would love to hear some of the things that you've seen either yourself do in the past or you've seen some newbies do more recently. But yeah, so definitely, if you have stories, drop them down in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And of course, I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, give it a share, maybe, comment on it, whatever it is, so that other people can see it too. That always helps us with the algorithm. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so that you're notified every time that we post new videos. And while you're at it, check out these videos as well, and we will see you next time around. Cheers.